The first thing I remember is the sound, not the pain. A hard thud, like a door slamming inside my chest, echoing through a room that had gone completely silent. For a split second, nobody moved. Not the judge, not the bailiff, not the guy in uniform standing over me with his boot still pressed against my ribs. And, in that frozen moment while I was lying on the courtroom floor in handcuffs, I realized something strange. This wasn't about the law. This was about power. And power, when it thinks it's untouchable, always overplays its hand. A few days earlier, my biggest concern was whether I'd make it to my sister's place before dark. I was driving cross-country. Nothing fancy, an old pickup with a cracked windshield and a coffee cup rattling in the holder. I hadn't shaved in a couple of days, wore a faded t-shirt and jeans that had seen better years. I looked like someone easy to ignore, or worse, easy to judge. That's usually how it starts. People don't attack what they respect. They attack what they think won't fight back. The town was called Pine Ridge. One main road, one gas station, and a sign that bragged about community values. I slowed down the moment I hit the limit, but the red and blue lights still lit up behind me. I pulled over, engine off, window down, hands visible. I'd done that 1,000 times in places far more dangerous than this quiet stretch of road. The deputy walked up slow, real slow, like he was enjoying the moment. Big guy, tight uniform, the kind of smile that never reaches the eyes. "License," he said, sharp-clipped. I told him where it was before moving. That annoyed him. "I didn't ask for a play-by-play," he snapped. I remember thinking, here we go. He looked at my ID, then back at me. "You know why I pulled you over?" I asked if I'd done something wrong. He said I swerved. I hadn't. He said he smelled alcohol. I don't drink. I offered a test. He laughed and told me to step out of the vehicle. That laugh wasn't relief, it was permission. I stepped out taller than he expected. You could see it in his eyes, the quick recalculation. That didn't stop him. It just made him rougher. Hands on the hood. Spread your feet. A shove that was a little too hard. A search that lingered. When he found a folded paper in my pocket, he crumpled it without looking. Said I was under arrest. DUI. Resisting. Disorderly conduct. Threw the cuffs on tight like he wanted them to hurt. In the back of the cruiser, he called someone and joked about searching my truck, maybe finding cash, maybe worse. I leaned my head back and breathed. Slow in, slow out. I'd learned a long time ago that panic only helps the person trying to break you. The holding cell was cold and smelled like bleach and old sweat. They took my phone, denied my call, told me to sit tight. Hours passed, then night, then morning. By the time they brought me into court, I hadn't slept, but I was calm. That seemed to bother them more than anything. My public defender introduced herself like she was already apologizing. She said the judge was tough, said the deputy had a good record, said if I pled, I could be out in 6 months. I told her I wasn't pleading to something I didn't do. She looked at me like I was choosing the hard way on purpose. The judge barely looked at me when the charges were read. DUI, assault on an officer. I almost laughed at that one. When I spoke up, he shut me down fast. "You'll speak when spoken to." The deputy smirked like he owned the room. I said my rights had been ignored. The judge said this wasn't the place for speeches. I mentioned my background not to brag, just to explain why none of this made sense. The judge laughed. Said people like me always had stories. Said stolen valor was a crime too. Set bail so high it might as well have been a life sentence. Then I asked about the paper the deputy took from me. That's when everything changed. The deputy stepped forward, face red, breathing hard. Told me to shut up. I asked if he was threatening me. That look in his eyes wasn't control, it was panic. And panic makes people stupid. He kicked me. Hard. Right in front of everyone. I hit the floor, air ripped out of my lungs. I heard gasps, then the judge's voice, calm as ever, saying the officer was protecting the court. Just like that, reality got rewritten. In the cell afterward, every breath burned. I knew the injury. Deep bruising. Not broken, but bad enough. They dragged me back like a sack of laundry, laughing. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to my heartbeat slow. That afternoon, my lawyer came back. She looked shaken. Kept saying she'd file motions, call watchdog groups, but her voice told me she didn't believe it would matter. She said they'd keep me there for months just to wear me down. I asked her if she had a phone. She said yes, but she couldn't let me use it. I told her she wouldn't need to. I gave her a number and a phrase to say. I told her not to write it down. She asked me if I was sure. I told her no one ever is until they have to be. When she left, I waited. I didn't hear the helicopters, but I felt the shift. You can feel it when the balance of a place changes. Guards stopped joking. Radios crackled nonstop. Then the door opened and a man in a crisp uniform stepped in, eyes scanning, taking everything in. He looked at my bruised jaw and nodded once. That nod said more than any apology ever could. Things moved fast after that. Phones rang that never rang before. People who'd acted untouchable suddenly couldn't look anyone in the eye. The deputy avoided me. The sheriff went pale. Evidence appeared that had supposedly never existed. Video, audio, truth unfiltered. They took me back to court, but this time I walked in free, flanked by people who didn't ask permission. The footage played on a screen big enough for everyone to see. The stop, the lies, the kick, the judge watching and doing nothing. You could hear the room breathe together like a town waking up from a long, bad dream. The judge tried to talk his way out. Connections, friends, promises, none of it mattered anymore. Power only works when everyone agrees to pretend it's legitimate. That agreement had just been revoked. But the real twist came later when they followed the money. Private contracts, asset seizures. A system designed to feed on people who couldn't fight back. I wasn't special. I was just the one who didn't break. By the time the sun came up the next day, Pine Ridge wasn't the same place. People stood outside their houses watching things they'd never thought they'd see. Accountability. Consequences. My lawyer found me sitting on the courthouse steps. She looked different. Straighter. Lighter. She said she almost didn't make the call. I told her that's how it always is. The hardest calls matter the most. I left town a few days later, ribs still sore, truck a little more beat up than before. As I drove away, I thought about how close I'd come to disappearing into a system that counts on silence and fear. And I wondered how many others never get that moment when the story flips. So here's the question I'll leave you with. If you were there watching power cross the line, knowing the cost of speaking up, would you make the call, or would you look away and hope it wasn't your turn next? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Argue, disagree, share your own stories. Because the only thing more dangerous than corruption is everyone pretending it's normal.